Hello there, Stanley Carr here. I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one of a kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest, former WWE superstar, Zach Gowen. Welcome, Zach, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Great to be here. Thank you for the interest and thank you for the platform.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So you've got such an very inspirational story. Growing up in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. Talk to me about your childhood and upbringing.
Man, listen, it was never boring. I'll tell you that right now. I uh I think what stands out and what makes my story unique is the fact that I lost my entire left leg to cancer when I was 8 years old. Obviously, nobody wants to be diagnosed with cancer, and we all know the devastation that disease can bring. And I think about how challenging it was for my mother, a single mom and her firstborn, going through a life-threatening disease at 8 years old is just, it's beyond comprehension. And just before we go any further, I got to tell you that my mom is my hero. So any sort of inspiration derived from me or my story, it all goes back to my mom, and that's the foundation. That's where I get it all from. And so I just want to shine a light on her. She's the real superstar in this family for sure. And but what got me through, what really helped me get me through that traumatic, disease and process was my love of professional wrestling. I mean that's what it count. Wrestling allowed me to find an escape when I needed it. And I could get lost in the magic of professional wrestling and be fully engaged in that, in the artistry and the pageantry and the storylines and the violence and all of that, as we all know and love. um I could fully engage in that no matter what was happening around me. So whether it was chemotherapy, or whether it was me, going through surgery, or just feeling like complete dog crap, I could always escape into the love of professional wrestling, man.
Everybody's got their escape, whether it is wrestling or comic books or movies, music, things that you like that just take you out of that weird funk. Uh, as you pointed out earlier, it was traumatic. 8 years old is very young, let alone at any age to discover a life-threatening illness or disease. Do you remember the first time you had heard that you got cancer?
Yeah, so what happened was I sprained my knee playing soccer at recess in the second grade. And the reason why I sprained my knee was because of the tumor growing on my left femur. But obviously, we didn't expect that, or the doctors didn't look for that. We just treated it as a sprained knee, which is something very common in active children, and I was a very active child. But the problem was, over the next 9, 10 months, my leg would never heal. It got worse and worse and worse, and the pain kept increasing, and the leg kept breaking. We couldn't figure out what was going on until the doctors did a biopsy, and the results came back, and they were conclusive. The reason why I broke my leg in the first place, the reason why it never healed, was because obviously of the tumor. And at that point, it had been in my body so long that the doctors were like, listen, they sat my mom down and said, if you want to give Zach his best chance at seeing his ninth birthday, we recommend an amputation of the leg, to literally cut it off at the source. And so action had to happen, and it happened very, very quickly. It was determined within a few weeks that we were gonna amputate. So, um, you got a picture. I went through like 8 months of just being in pain all the time and being uncomfortable and being in and out of hospitals and trying to figure out what was happening. And then all of a sudden, it got ramped up and turned up to 100. Like, hey, listen, this is a very serious deal, and it's going to require some insane surgery and aftercare as well, So my whole life got turned upside down.
Yeah, I mean that's very hard, especially going through all that stuff and the surgeries and the therapies and all that stuff. It just weighs you down, wears you down, and just it's like yeah, you're stepping into a new world, so to speak, because you're now dealing with this, and you got to figure out how am I going to work around this issue? How am I going to work around this? And so wrestling seems to be a real passion of yours, as you mentioned a bit ago, growing up. Who are some of your favorites growing up that you just idolized?
Man, number one, first and foremost, was the Ultimate Warrior. That was my guy. You know, I mean, everyone knows him, and I don't think he really gets his due in terms of the popularity, and the moments that he had. Especially with Hogan at WrestleMania in Toronto at the Sky Dome, man, and how he captured my generation. Hulk Hogan was maybe a few years older than me, but I at the right place at the right time when the Ultimate Warrior just burst onto the scene, man, his star shined bright for sure. So that I mean that was my guy. That was my guy.
Yeah, when you get people that like you're into and just inspire you to do great things, it definitely it hooks you in right away when you're starting to watch these people on television and these characters, come to life, and then it makes you want to get into the business too because they're larger than life, they're big, and all of a sudden when you get that light bulb goes off and you decide, hey, I want to pursue this as a career. Now I got to train. Do you remember the moment for you where you went, this is what I want to do?
100%. It was in August of 1996. I was 13 years old. I remember the moment. Um, I was on vacation with my family, and on the TV was WCW Saturday Night, and I saw a match between Rey Mysterio and the Ultimo Dragon. And when I saw that match, it clicked in me that maybe this is something that I could participate in. You know, I I knew that I was never going to be 6'4", 285 pounds. That was out of the realm of possibilities for 13-year-old Zach. But when I saw the athleticism on display and I saw the high risk and the ability from those two wrestlers, I thought to myself, well, listen, I'm a smaller guy. One leg or not, I'm pretty athletic. And this is something that I can relate to a lot more than I can, um, you know, the Big Show doing a choke slam or the Warlord doing a press slam, like, or Hercules Hernandez coming out looking like this. Like, I can't, I love all of that. But the first connection, the first bridge that I crossed of where I'm at in the world of professional wrestling, that bridge was paved by Ultimo Dragon and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, and the cruiserweight division was white hot at this point because you had Ray, you had Ultimate Dragon, you had Eddie, you had Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, and all these different guys. It was one of the highlights of WCW programming during the late 90s. And of course, it just went from there, went across the board. And so many people today, I think, have been inspired by the cruiserweight division. And going back to your career, 13 years old, you start training. What can you tell me about your training process? Because it's a very tough business that you enter in. And with your story, I'd imagine it was even harder.
You would imagine that, but the reality was it wasn't all that hard, which is kind of surprising and kind of goes against the narrative, I guess. But um, and to your point too, uh, m- I'm 42 years old, right? And so if you look at all of the top stars now, right? You look at Seth Rollins and you look at Moxley and everybody across the board who came up through my age through the independent wrestling scene, we were all we were inspired by two things. Number one, we were inspired by the WCW Cruiserweight division in the late 90s. And two, we were inspired by ECW, namely Rob Van Dam, Jerry Lynn, and Sabu. That cultivated, you see, that led to like guys like Low Key and Amazing Red in the early 2000s, which led to AJ Styles, which led to you see the progression
Yes.
of growing up in that time and being influenced by all of that. And so, one thing about just kind of on a sidebar, one thing, rest in peace, Sabu. Sabu was my hero. Like when I started wrestling and I was 18 years old, I said I wanted to be the one-legged Sabu. If you ask me what my career, what my goals are in the professional wrestling world, I would say as a wrestling student, I would say I just want to be a high school math teacher that wrestles on the weekends. And if I can wrestle Sabu one time at a local VFW hall, then my career is made. And those were the only goals that I had when I started wrestling. I just wanted to be in the ring and be a part of the business. And and so I sat Sabu down one time and Sabu over the course of, 25 years became a friend. He became a friend of mine. And I go, listen, I go, do you realize how big of an influence you are, like on the entire wrestling landscape? Like the way the guys wrestle, the way you capture the imagination of my generation. Do you have, and then he would just always blow me off when I would tell him that. He's like, I don't want to hear it. No, that's not true. I go, and so I hope before he passed, he realized the impact that he had on the entire wrestling world and its scope and measure and gravity. It's really profound. He left his imprint on the business for sure, and he will be missed. But when you ask about my training, for whatever reason, from day one, I was a natural. Like I knew, like, and I'm not saying like it. Obviously, it's painful. Obviously, it's uncomfortable physically. Uh, but in terms of getting into the ring and moving around and taking bumps and doing a front bump, and I was always one of those guys that if I could see something, then I could mimic it with my body. I was a very visual learner in that. So when they said, "All right," you know, the timing of this drop kick is as soon as they hit the ropes, you're already halfway in the. I'm like, perfect, got it. First time, boom, perfect drop kick. I was always able to kind of retain that or learn that mentally, and then I was able to mimic it physically. So so there was no challenge in terms of like learning how to wrestle for me. The challenge that for me was twofold. One, figuring out how to wrestle on one leg so it makes sense. And two, figuring out how to like trying to get booked and trying to do something for the first time because I had a lot of resistance from promoters when I started out, which was, hey, we think it's great that you're doing this, Zach, but and it's inspirational and it's great, but you know, from the promoter side, they're thinking to themselves, well, how is my audience going to react to this? Like, no, there's never been a one-legged professional wrestler there besides Kerry Von Erich. There's never been, but that wasn't advertised as such, you know. Um, will my audience be uncomfortable? Will they laugh? Will it be weird? That sort of thing. So that was the barrier that I had to overcome in the beginning. But the actual wrestling stuff came very naturally to me.
What was something that kind of like motivated you to keep going when things were hard? Because as you said, like you were trying to get booked on shows and you're putting your name out there, and when you're in that kind of phase where you're trying to figure out how can I get out there, how can I do this for a living, what's something that kept you going, like, man, I want to keep doing this. I don't want to give up here. I want to keep going.
Um, I think it was my passion for performing. Like that was so strong within me that I was willing to take the hits that came along with that, you know? Um, and also success for me in wrestling happened very, very quickly. Within my first year, let's see, I had my debut match March 16th, 2002. And by January of 2003, I was offered a WWE contract. And so in other words, there wasn't enough rejection for me to experience for me to even think about giving up. Maybe if that process happened, there was a bigger time window and I had a lot more rejection that would have uh, worn on me and made me think about giving up and quitting, but there just simply wasn't enough time for that.
Well, let's talk about your WWE run because you were there for well over a year, getting to work with so many different people. Your debut, you get brought in, work with Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. You can't ask for a better debut than that.
No, it's insane. And the older that I get and the more perspective that I have, it becomes even more insane to even think about. And I don't think I don't think it's something that we'll see ever again, really. A guy literally, you know, picked up off the street with a one of a kind, unique gimmick, getting to work with not only wrestling legends but cultural icons like Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and Vince McMahon and those guys. It's mind blowing to think about, and it's kind of like right place, right time. You think about the landscape of professional wrestling in 2002, 2003. I mean, WCW is gone, ECW is gone. There's no competition. WWE is coming out of the Attitude Era, the most successful period of professional wrestling to date. And they're trying to figure out direction and they're trying to figure out where's this company going. We're at the beginning of the internet revolution, where everything's going digital and HD and all of this, and the pay-per-view model is changing. And it's just this cauldron of just change and instability, you know? And so WWE at the time trying to find their next direction, which turned out to be the ruthless aggression era, which was very good. Um, they're trying to figure out how to uh, 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 move forward and navigate, you know? And they're just throwing stuff at the wall, really. And I happened to be one of those things, and I was there, and I was a part of it, and it was wild.
You had a feud with Vince McMahon that I think turned into one of the best programs during that time. I think that you were able to have that storyline with Vince, and that later led to your match with Brock Lesnar, which fans still talk about to this day. Walk me through going into TV, being told, "Hey, you're going to wrestle Brock tonight," and this is in your hometown, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
That's right. Yeah, it was at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. Um, and that day I was supposed to wrestle Matt Hardy, just to show you how insane the WWE or the television business is, or the wrestling business that has a television like that. I mean, things can change up to the last minute, and they often do. So that day, I woke up thinking that I was going to wrestle Matt Hardy in Detroit, and I had my friends and my family there, and it was going to be we're going to have a good match, and we're going to progress our storyline. Who Matt Hardy to me is, I mean, he's a hero in the wrestling space. One of those guys that I don't think gets his proper due. I think him and Chris Jericho, I hold in very high esteem in terms of their ability to stay relevant, reinvent themselves, and entertain on a week to week basis. It's just, I wish I had that ability where I could just like think of an idea or a creative and then dive into it and totally forget it. But I have one leg. Like my gimmick is so like we can't ignore that and we can't forget about that for me to do all the fun stuff that those guys get to do, you know? And everything they do works, man. Like those two guys are just like it's such a talent and a skill to be able to every 2 years reinvent yourself and be just as creative and just as engaging and have same quality of storylines and wrestling matches. Those two guys are my heroes, man. Like it's insane what they're able to do. But I will say that morning I woke up and I was going to wrestle Matt. That's what it was going to be. And then I get a call from Bruce Pritchard, probably around 11 a.m. or something. And he was saying, "Hey, listen, plans change. Is your mom available to be a part of the storyline tonight?" And I go, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Well, you're going to wrestle Brock." And at that point, my eyes got real big because I'm like, "Oh, that's a big deal. This is gonna be a big deal." And he's asking for my mom. So I call my mom. My mom's at work. She works in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the time, and I go, "Hey mom, can you get to the arena today? Can you leave work right now and come to the arena?" And she said, "Yeah." And then she was there by, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. And we went over the creative and I knew that it was gonna be memorable. I knew it was going to be really, really special. Because the idea was Brock had turned heel maybe 2 or 3 weeks before, and but he was still getting really positive babyface reactions. And so the idea was, what can we do to get the audience to hate Brock Lesnar? What if we beat the shit out of the most sympathetic babyface in the company in his hometown in front of his mother, his little brother, and his grandmother. Yeah, I think, and that was the creative direction, and that happened all within a couple of hours. And then we went out there and we had that match, and it's one thing that I'm really really proud of. I love that match because it's one thing that fans to this day in 2026, um, if they recognize me or when they recognize me, it's the one thing they always bring up is, "Hey, I was 7 years old and I watched Brock Lesnar kill you, and I'll never forget." It's like it imprinted, ingrained, burned into the memories of like a lot of these wrestling fans, and I feel very grateful that I got to be a part of that moment that a lot of people remember. I think it's very special.
What was Brock like to be around backstage?
Brock was awesome, man. He was great. I love Brock. I got along really, really well with Brock Lesnar. He was always kind, respectful, showed up on time, and most importantly for me, he took care of me in the ring that night. And I didn't leave that match any worse for wear. And it's a testament to his professionalism, his ability, because obviously if Brock Lesnar wanted to hurt me, there's nothing I could do about it. And so the amount of trust that goes into that and his ability to make it look so insanely devastating, right? Because this is a big moment in his career too. And his ability to do that while keeping me safe, he'll always have my respect. And the fact that after the match, my family came backstage and my grandmother was really, really concerned about me. And she thought she knows that wrestling is entertainment, but she got caught up in the moment that night, and she thought that her grandson was getting hurt for real. And so Brock Lesnar came over to her and consoled her and
Oh.
said, "Hey, Grandma, see, he's okay. It's all good, you know." And I'll always appreciate that, you know. Lowering my grandmother's blood pressure in that moment was very, very kind to me. It's something he didn't have to do, but he did.
Talk about suspense of disbelief. I mean, the heat that you guys got that night was insane. And then a few weeks later, he pushes you down a flight of stairs. I mean, talk about scary.
Yeah, it was they attached Brock to me to get him to that level of heat from the audience that allowed Brock to go on and do all the great things that he did moving forward. But they had to get Brock here in order for him to kind of continue his path as a top WWE superstar.
I mean, to be a part of those moments looking back, it's like, wow, I can't believe I actually did this.
100%. Um, it's insane to me to think that at 20 years old, I mean, my son's 13, I can't imagine he's 7 years, 6 years away from being that age. It's just wild to me to think that as a kid, um, that I was able that they entrusted me enough to deliver and to perform and to be and to work with my heroes. To walk into the office every day and, oh, there's the Big Show, or there's Hulk Hogan, or there's Eddie Guerrero, there's Chris Benoit. These are the guys that I grew up idolizing. There's Rey Mysterio. Oh my God, I'm doing shots with Rey Mysterio at a bar in Miami right now. This is wild. There was so many like moments that I had like that while I was there. It was just insane.
Now, outside of wrestling, I know you've been doing a lot of motivational speaking and have been going to schools, talking to kids. Talk to me about what made you decide to get into that.
It was all by accident, really. I had no intention of, just like I had no intention of being a WWE superstar. I do things because I feel compelled to do them, and I feel like they're the right thing to do. And then all of a sudden a path opens up, and then I get to walk the path, and then it leads to a life that I never knew was possible. That's just kind of the story of my life. I'm like the one-legged Forrest Gump, you know? Like I just find myself doing really, really, really fun things and being involved in some things that I just never knew was possible. It's all about, for me, taking the next right step, doing the next right action, trying to help somebody without any recognition or reward, living by spiritual principles that guide me. And then life, I just participate in my life like it's a movie, and it just opens up, and it's like just like how we're talking about, like I'm pinching myself being at a bar with Rey Mysterio, you know, while Don Marie is consoling my friend back in Detroit on the phone because his girlfriend just left him, and she's being super kind and nice to him, which is like just I look around and I'm like, how did I end up here? Same thing now with public speaking. I get to travel the country and work with hundreds of thousands of parents, teachers, and students from all over this country, and I get to offer a little bit of value to them, and it's just like, wow, this is incredible. How I started doing that was it was an accident, really. I had I was booked on an independent wrestling show in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. And the promoter happened to work at the school, the middle school where the show was being held. And he asked me to come in a day early and to talk to the students to kind of promote the show. And so I said yes, and I did it. Because for me, the answer is always yes, unless I have a good reason to say no. And I'm scared or I don't want to do it is never a good enough reason for me to say no. That's kind of the rule I live by. And so I go and I do this talk in front of these students, and it's not a great talk. I mean, obviously, it's like the first time you do anything, you're not going to be good at it. I would imagine your first podcast wasn't very good compared to what how it is now, Stanley, you know. And I'm giving this talk, and then all of a sudden I realize that I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. There's a moment there where I'm connecting with the students, and I think to myself, "Oh, I want to do more of this." So I go home and I Google youth motivational speakers, and I get a list of like 20 websites, 20 emails, 20 contact forms, and I fill all of them out, and I reach out to every single speaker that I find, and I say, "Hey, my name is Zach. This is my story. You do what I want to do. Can you help me?" That's what I send out. And out of those 20 emails that I sent out, I got one email back And his name is Carlos Ojeda Jr., and he is the best speaker in the world. And he is the CEO and co-founder of CoolSpeak, the company that I work for now. This was 13, 14 years ago. And the only reason he emailed me back was because he recognized my name because he was a fan of WWE back when I wrestled for WWE. So he thought to himself, Zach, I know Zach Gowen. Let me talk to him. And then that was the first domino that opened the door to the life that I get to live now.
What are some things that you discuss with the students that you speak with?
It's for me all about I share tools on how to build resilience. I share I share the principles that are time tested, scientifically proven, and principles that I employ and that I live to the best of my ability on a day-to-day basis. And I become a demonstration of what living a principled life can bring. And I share about the ability to ask for help, how important that is, and how to do that because life is hard. Everyone's going to struggle, no matter who you are, where you're from, or what you look like. Developing the ability to ask for help is the strongest asset that I have. The ability to receive help, that's another big one. Because a lot of us can say, "Hey, listen, I'm struggling with this or I need help." And then we get the answer that we need, but it isn't the answer that we want. And so there's some resistance to it. Now all of a sudden our ego is being attacked. Now all of a sudden our fear button is being pushed and we push back and we don't make the necessary steps to change. Now we continue to stay stuck. The ability to reach back and help somebody else out. So leadership through service, being part of a community, being part of something bigger than you. All of these, man. This I take all of these principles and I put them into a I put them into a program that and I put it into language that students and parents and teachers can digest. And hopefully it makes an impact. Hopefully it connects. And then the idea is they take my talk or my workshop or my workbook or whatever it is, and they implement those ideas into their lives to improve their lives.
That's so amazing. You know, you're out there making a difference and you're talking to these kids. I'm sure you get a lot of feedback from these students after you finish your talks.
Tons of feedback, tons of feedback. And now it's never been more important to have examples, living examples of what can be possible. There's a lot of despondency. There's a lot of apathy out there, and there's a lot of disconnect with students and they're out in the outside world. The idea is that the world is a very, very big place, and there's lots of possibilities, and there's many paths to success, and you can be successful, you can be happy, you can be joyous, and you can be free no matter what you've seen, what you've been through, or what has happened to you. It's possible. And a lot of students, not only students, but a lot of adults, between me and you, Stanley, I'm sure you go out in public and you see the insanity that's out there, man. Um, a lot of people, I think, can use this message for sure.
Yeah, you got an inspiring one. You're aiming to pay it forward to other people.
Amen.
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
It allows me to uh be fulfilled in ways that temporary kind of relief or joy or happiness can't, you know. Uh I think fulfillment should be the goal rather than feeling good. Fulfillment over feeling good. That's my next t-shirt that I'm gonna
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah. I think if more people search for fulfillment versus feeling good, I think society will be in a much better place. I really do. But the idea is helping others helps me ultimately, you know, It allows me to sharpen my tools in my toolbox so that I can deal with the stuff that life throws at me. Um, and ultimately allows me to be a better husband and a better father.
Kindness goes a long way, and the more we can spread kindness and joy to other people, it'll just make the world a better place.
I think so, man. I'm with you on that.
Well, Zach, I want to say thank you so much for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you and the workshops that you're doing?
Uh, I'm on social media, so Facebook, Instagram, at Zach Gowen. I'm always posting pictures and where I'm going to be and the subjects I talk about. And I try to be pretty good at responding to messages. So if you reach out, let's connect and let's see if we can make the world a better place, one event at a time.
That's the way to go. Well, thanks again, Zach, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Hey, thank you, Stanley. Anytime, man. Great job wrestling with heart. The absolute best. Keep at it. Keep doing it. And we'll see you real soon. All right.
Will do. Take care.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.